Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Stories of Selling Human podcast. I'm your host, Alex Smith, and I started this podcast because I truly believe everyone in the world will someday be faced with a situation, could be business, could be personal, that requires you to create change. I believe we all want to be heard, seen, and understood, but the people who get our attention and convince, persuade, or influence us are not just salespeople. There are great people throughout all walks of life that we're drawn to. I'm going to share their stories here so we can tap into what makes us human, practice our human skills, and ultimately, we'll all become better at selling by being human. Gang, I have an amazing human on the podcast today. She is just giving me the giggles before this. We had a lot of technical issues. This person is currently the community, heading up community growth at an awesome SaaS company that helps you just become a badass at sending outbound emails, a company called Lavender. She's the co-founder of Social. You've probably seen her on stages, keynoting at sales conferences, and she's also worked a big deal of her career with the Challenger organization around just promoting and evangelizing all that is in the book, The Challenger Sale. And she is just recently in the club of people that you don't know how to pronounce their last name. So please welcome none other than Jen Allen Knopf to the podcast. I don't know if I probably didn't get that right, Jen, but welcome, Jen. So close. All right. I should have asked you. See, that's the questioning. I should have asked you that question before I actually went live, but welcome, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk today.
Well, correct me. How do you pronounce the full name?
Don't worry, I got it wrong for like the first 6 months. It's Knuth. It's German.
Knuth. Jen Allen Knuth. Welcome, Jen. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. Just to for everybody that maybe has never met Jen, I met Jen through her content on LinkedIn. I dig everything. Honestly, the personal stuff, the sales stuff. She comes at sales through just the lens of solving problems, creating value, talking about the cost of inaction, and breaking through the status quo. And you're gonna get all of her notes in the show, all of her links in the show notes. So I highly suggest you follow Jen on LinkedIn. But Jen, so we'll talk a lot today. I want to just talk about just ways that you as a seller, and now even your current role, bring out some of the human side of the human connection piece just in outbound emails and all sorts of stuff. So we'll get to that. But Jen, just the beginning of this podcast, it's called Stories of Selling Human, and we'll talk about an awesome stories today. Even maybe the funny story about how you deduce that I need to improve my headphone situation on this podcast. But when I say the term to you, Jen, sell something and sell it by being human, what's the first thing that comes to mind for you, and what does that mean when you hear that?
I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is, and I posted about this yesterday, but it's actually giving a shit about the person you're selling to. And as obvious and basic as that sounds, I think one of the really difficult things about being in sales is because it is a function where there is a number over our heads constantly. If I'm an SDR, it might be a meeting number. If it's an AE, it might be a quota number. And it becomes so easy to get distracted by that and make that our primary motivation. And when I think about the very best people I've seen in my career who sell, it always feels like a conversation that you enjoy having. One of the main reasons I did not want to get into sales initially is because I viewed it as this is like a high pressure, used car salesman, I'm going to make you do something you don't want to do and then I'm going to win. And that was so gross to me. But I think one of the reasons I was excited to come on here today is because just being a great human is a superpower and a total differentiator in sales today.
I love how you just say the word, a conversation people enjoy having, not just even, worth having too. You have to bring the value and the goods too. But, people like, look, and I do want to talk to you about the book, The Challenger, because I've had this conversation with lots of friends. Like, it's maybe one of the most sometimes misunderstood books in the history of sales, because people like see that provocative title and just take it as like, oh, salespeople are just pushing clients to do things they don't want to do, or they're like just challenging objections and, they see the word challenger and that says, I need to push my clients. But I like that, because when I hear in, a conversation that people enjoy having, it's like, okay, well, why do people enjoy having that conversation? Well, it's like, hey, I'm attuning myself to them. I'm actually learning more about my world, not teaching them, because everything Challenger says is teach, tailor, take control, or whatever. But like, I've heard even, I think one of the authors, Brent Adamson, talk about on a podcast that it's not just so much about us, learning about the client's world as much as like we're learning about ours, because we don't know. We're that curious. We want to know about, I want to know about you and all of your background and everything. I'm here learning from you, and hopefully like that learning can go both ways, and we both enjoy the conversation. I don't know what you think about kind of that aspect of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also this pressure in sales that everybody has to be an expert, right? So when I was first selling, I was selling to CMOs of Fortune 500 companies. Like, I just graduated college. I had no idea what B2B meant. I didn't know what any of these terms meant. And then I felt this pressure to go in and be like, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. And one, it doesn't work. Two, it's just going back to the title of this whole thing. It's not human. I would never walk up to someone on the street and be like, I'm going to tell you about your world, and I just met you right now. But yet we allow people to believe that's what sales is. And so I absolutely agree with what you said. I think it is really about having a conversation where we have a point of view, we've got an observation, but we're not walking into that saying, I'm the expert, I know everything, because we would never do that anywhere else in our lives. And just because it's a quota hangover, it doesn't mean that it's okay there. So it's mutual learning. There are things that I know, there's things you know, let's put the puzzle pieces together. Maybe they fit, maybe they don't.
Yeah. It's funny, like I hear like a lot of times, like in a process for those listening that like aren't like even sellers, like you want to learn, and like the beginning stages are discovery. And so like everyone's like, research as much as you can, go through, 10Ks and quarterly earnings reports and have all this like research before you even go and have that point of view. And I sometimes people think like maybe confuse having a point of view with like, like just knowing everything you can possibly know, because like we only know so much from the outside about, like we can read all that stuff, but like what's actually going on that person's world is so different. So like I'm trying to like, learn a little bit and have a hypothesis. Like you said, point of view is just, it's like, here's what I can observe, but I need to confirm. I could be totally wrong, and that's when I see a lot of your content around like confirming and validating and asking questions to like just, say, hey, here's what I think, but like, who cares what I think? I'm more concerned like if I'm even close, or what you think, and opening that conversation.
I mean, 100%. And I think there is a fear factor for a lot of sellers in saying exactly what you just said. And it's completely unfounded. Like, we should be able to walk into a call and say, look, I recognize that this is an investment of your time. I take it really seriously. So I did some work to try to figure out, something that I thought might be happening. Here's what I could tell from the outside, but I don't work in your company. I don't sit within your four walls. What have I missed? That is such a like defense dropping mechanism that I just don't see sellers using. It shows you've taken the time. It shows you care, but it also shows that you're not naive enough to think that you know everything because you read a bunch of reports. Like, I used to make that mistake all the time, and I'd come in, I'd be like, and this is the problem. And they're like, you don't know anything. You literally just started talking to me. And sometimes I think we pressure salespeople to go in with that posture, when in reality, I love the way that you said it. It's just like, here's an observation I have, correct me. Because what do humans love to do? We love to correct people, right? And then it
Yeah.
creates this two-way dialogue where I'm not talking at you, I'm talking with you, and we're sharing different opinions and points of view.
Yeah. Well, so Jen, what for, like, you talked in the beginning, I always love to like understand, like, people's not just origin stories, but like where they first, learned that selling could be like this, like there was something different about it. There was a way that you could do it and not feel icky and not feel like this was like win at all cost. And I'm just like pushing stuff at you and it's all numbers and everything like that. So like, where was it? Like, talk to me about the point in your career where maybe you saw, like this is something that I can excel at. Like maybe you were even doing it without even realizing it before you even had your first sales job. So, I don't know if you can like kind of like harken back to like maybe the skills that, made you good at selling before you even took your first sales job, and kind of where those maybe showed up in your life. I don't know if that's an easy thing to do, but yeah, just curious of where that may have happened to you before sales.
That's actually a great question that I'm realizing no one has asked me before. Not in that exact way. I think, man, this is a great question. I think if you look back on how I grew up and like the things that I did, let's just take high school, right? Like I was always very effective at bringing people together. So stupid shit like student body president and, theater and all that stuff. Like I was good at getting people in a room and managing, listening, doing all of those things. And it was never by sheer power. Like there are some people out there who I think can command a room because their force of presence is so incredibly strong and you're just like, oh, I just got to listen. That I don't think was my approach. But I think that probably looking back those are the things that made me decent at sales when I started. But I did not start off like a super stellar salesperson. I was very, very fortunate to have a phenomenal manager, and I saw how she showed up in conversations, and it was from the get-go, I was like, I just want to be like her. And that was my motivation, to try to assemble these like bits and pieces and say, can I do this? Can I show up and have conversations that are as confident and like compelling and fun and human as she's having? And that drove me to really fall in love with learning how to sell.
Yeah. I love it like that. Yeah, sometimes people around us, we have to like look at other people and not just like I want to copy everything that they do, but you see I always like to like ask about those people in your life that like commanded a room and people were drawn to them. And so if you you can picture that person in your mind, and I don't know if you want to, tell us who that is, but what do you think she did well, and what were the ways that she was able to like get influence and get people to buy in and to maybe coach and teach? What were some of those skills, and what did she do really well, you think?
Yeah, her name's Jessie Dingwell. She was my first manager. Loved her. So I think there were a couple things she did really well. One is she was able to establish a connection that wasn't built on bad, cheesy rapport. Like I never heard her talk about the weather. I don't think I ever once heard her talk about the weather. But she would, and this was back before LinkedIn was big and we had all this access to information, but she would always take the time before her calls to be like, all right, let me just figure out like what this company sells. And then she would show genuine curiosity in it, right? Like, so I noticed you do this. That's really cool. Tell me about that. And she was able very quickly to get that person talking about themselves in a way where she was like, I mean, she was so good. She would learn through what seemed like an innocuous, innocent conversation, but she would then pull those things back out later. So I loved the way that she could very quickly establish that. The second thing she did was she totally changed my opinion of how a woman shows up in business. Like she was my first really strong role model. She wasn't passive. She wasn't like apologetic. Her tonality was extremely confident. And I just remember thinking like that confidence when you're talking to a Fortune 500 CMO is essential because they're reading you, right? Like, is this person worth my time? And what do they know? What do they don't? And she just always came across with this like force of conviction that made it really hard to ignore what she had to say. And so beyond that, she also just like was really brilliant and really smart, and she just would challenge people in a way that didn't feel like she was coming for them, but just be like, that doesn't make any sense, like let's talk more about that. And I think all of those things were so shiny to me because I didn't feel like I had them.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, because I love that. Like she was able to say like, tell me like that doesn't make sense to me, or like, help me understand that. You can do it in a way, because there is a part in the book. It's like just like a teacher. It's hard for a teacher to get much from students if they don't push them or challenge them to get more out of their learning, just like it is for a seller and a customer. But I think people take that to, okay, I need to like just like there's a fine line of like, telling someone their baby's ugly, or telling someone they don't know what they're doing, or telling them something that, and we're telling them, or even we maybe teaching masked as telling, where we're like really thinking that we're teaching. We're like, oh, did you see this case study, or did you see this thing in report or in Forbes, or did you see this article? And like, we're not actually trying to understand first. And so there's a tactful way to go about challenging. So tell me what you think. Like, you've seen some of the, like the book, for those that haven't read it, like talk to us kind of like what that book is about in your words, and where you think people misunderstand the Challenger sale.
Oh my gosh, what a perfect word for it. So the book was essentially a study that was done across what is now, I think, like 60,000 B2B sellers. It was done right after the '08 economic downfall. And the reason the company did it at the time was because we were talking to sales leaders who are our clients, and they were all coming to us saying, look, the world is falling down around us, but we still have this small population of people who are absolutely murdering their goal. What do they know that we don't? And we looked back at them and said, honestly, we have no idea, but we can go and study it and find out. So there's all these biases and assumptions that people have around what makes a great salesperson. Like, some people are like, oh, it's their ability to negotiate, or their ability to like cold call. But they're all assumptions, right? And so what the company did at the time is they went through and they assessed like 100 and some different skills and behaviors. And then what they noticed is that there were these sets of skills and behaviors that kind of clustered together. And so all they did was name them. And when Challenger came out, the whole like talk track was, every relationship is so important and you've got to build relationships. And so what were we doing? We're out there saying like, hey, let me stop by your office. Let me check in. Let me do this. And people are like, I'm letting people go. I'm laying off like hundreds of people. Budgets are frozen. I don't know if I have a job. Like, I don't need you checking in. And so we saw it breaking, but the problem was we didn't know what to do about it. And so when you look at these challengers, I agree with you. The name is probably the best and worst thing to happen to the company, because the best thing, because it caused a lot of controversy. The worst thing, because people took that as, I can now have permission to go be in your face and aggressive and push you around, which is not what it's about. What it is about is saying, when there's high levels of uncertainty, we as humans seek to learn and we seek to avoid making mistakes, and it's a scary moment. So if I have a seller that walks into my office and provides information to me in a way that allows me to take ownership and say, okay, I've got this idea now, I can go be the hero to take this idea back to everybody else, that is infinitely more valuable than if I have a sales rep that walks in and is like, how's your kid doing in baseball? And tell me about like, your wine club. Like, that's not doing anything to serve a higher purpose. So very long way of saying Challenger is nothing to do with being aggressive or assertive. It has everything to do with recognizing that in times of need, people are looking for insight because they want to go back to their companies and say, I've got a big idea that I think solves for this problem we may have missed. Challenger's just enabling that.
Yeah. I think it's where, and I agree. So it's like, I want to find like those things that I've missed as a buyer. Like, I want to know, like, okay, like there's no seller that can ever tell me more about my world because I work here on a day-to-day basis. I'm here day in and day out. I'm the one that is affected by the problem. So I have a pretty good handle on it. But yet sales happen because people are like, holy crap, that person, like, yes, I have a problem, but it's a lot bigger than I thought it was a big problem. It's a whole lot bigger than I thought, or it's connected to other problems in the organization because, or I thought it was this problem, but maybe even it's totally different, really, is the core like diagnosis, right? Or like, here's what's causing it and I didn't even realize it. And like, that's, like those things are what buyers are like. They're like, yes, yeah, like help me see around that place that I didn't know,
Yeah.
and that happens. And I think people think like, oh, that is one road you can go down, or you can go down the other road of like getting to know someone and asking them about their wine club or whatever, and they never meet. But I'm like, I what I took away was like, you can. It's not like that you can't do that. Like by doing that stuff doesn't mean you have no relationship or that relationships don't matter. It just means that the relationship starts maybe from a different place, or it can grow from a different place. What do you think of the fact of like, just because like you said, they named those skills and people go, well, I don't want to be the relationship builder. I don't want to ever be known as the guy that or the girl who's just giving tickets and asking about like the soccer games and not getting to business problems. And so I'm not going to do that stuff. I'm going to do this stuff over here. But it's like a mixture of each. I don't know if you can talk to
Yeah.
like how to build relationships, yeah.
I think the way you said that is perfect, right? Relationships, as we think of them in that context, like a personal relationship, is a byproduct of building a relationship off the back of being helpful to that buyer, right? Like if I am going to call a CIO and just try to get him to buy from me because I'm the most likable person, that sounds wild to me, right? Like because what does everybody say? Oh, you need to build trust and credibility. It's like, okay, like it's some magical thing I just go in and do and say like, have I built the trust and credibility? Like Challenger to me is how you build trust and credibility early on so that you have the benefit of that relationship. Because when we help people want a relationship with us. But it's like by starting, by trying to get the relationship, you're trying to get the answer without doing the test, is how I kind of think about it.
I like that. Yeah. Getting to a place where people want to have a relationship with us, not like the other way around. It's like, I want to build a relationship with them, but how do you get it to like someone to say, I want a relationship with Jen. I want a relationship with Alex.
Yeah, and that's what you get, right? Like if you look at all of my clients, when I was selling, I never started by being really like, I started by going in and being like, I take this so seriously. Like you gave me 30 minutes of your time. I'm going to make, whether you buy from me or not, I want to do things in these 30 minutes that help you. But then you look at how those clients evolved. And it's like, I could text any one of them today and I would get an answer back. So the relationship comes, it's just not the starting point.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I can't let you get away on two things. I want to talk about how you use some of these things, this like way to, really lead with insights, build human connections in two places. So one, you're with Lavender, and it's a great tool to help people just make better cold emails and just get to like really just simplify what they're doing and be more efficient. So I want you to talk about two things: doing this like just this human way of selling through emails, and then also how you put out content on LinkedIn. Maybe we could like end with that. So talk to me a little bit about kind of like how you like to just some of the key things to really think about in terms of like being human through emails, and creating that connection when you don't even know somebody and it's just completely cold. What are things that are like really important for people to think about in order to do that, and where people get it wrong? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So first thing, and we talked about it a little bit before, but feeling like I have to play a salesperson. So if you look at the vast amount of cold email, and I never had this line of sight until I stepped into this role, and people seem to think I'm like carrying some sort of massive budget that I'm not.
The CFO. Yeah. I loved your post the other day. You're like, Like, just change job titles and see
Yeah,
like what cold
early
emails
way,
applying it. It's a
like know
brilliant
what you're
technique.
up against.
I love
But
it.
when I look at it, right, it's also stiff and it's also buzzwordy and it's platform and it's ROI and it's this and I'm like, this is all I don't know what any of these companies sell because it just all sounds the same. And so when we talked in the opener about like being human when you sell, being human is no different when you're selling than if you were to go to a party and walk up to someone. I would never walk up to someone and just start telling them all about myself and how great I am and all the success I've had in my life and how many push-ups I could do. Like that would be so creepy and weird and everybody would talk about me when I walked away, which is exactly what people do with cold emails. We're like, look how bad this thing is. So I think it is very much about saying, I'm going to take a moment to show you that I'm invested in you and I care. Right? So this is when I say this observation or this point of view. I never send cold emails without taking the time to look at the company and say, let me make an observation. Not so I'm like, look at me, I did my research. Do I get a brownie point? But so that they understand specifically why them, why now. And if someone says no to my email when I've done that, I can feel pretty confident walking away and saying, maybe I had the wrong read on the problem. So when I send an email, it's like, here's an observation about you. It's nothing about me. Here's a place where I'm curious. I've seen this thing play out at other companies. Curious if you're seeing it there because I don't work there. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then either way, like, I love what you're doing over here. Like, keep it up. Right. And that to me mirrors a conversation we would have at a party. Not the other one where it's like, I'm going to try to impress you and wow you with my case studies and my ROI and all my logos. I didn't ask and I don't care. And frankly, most buyers don't. So that to me is the way to do it in email is just think about would I actually say this loud at a party if I walked up to this buyer and would I say that? Most of the time I would assume people would never say their emails in person.
Yeah. What do you so the like what you're doing with Lavender, how do you like what I take away a lot of times by using the tool is just, I can get wordy in emails real quick and like I want to say like I struggle with it now like in my entire career. I got to tell this company like who we've helped, how we've helped them, what like we've done, or even like and in just recent years I've gotten more to like, hey, people like you tend to like struggle with these things. Here's what they may not know, but like even that sometimes I feel like sometimes doesn't land because it can sometimes be like, well, everyone's telling me that. Tell me something new that I don't know. So it's sometimes really hard to like pull out like just an insight, like sending something to someone cold. Like how are you what's Lavender doing to kind of help people through like just making things concise and kind of thinking about using AI to kind of think about how we want to be relevant to people over email?
Yeah, so one is it's catching you if you're not personalizing it, right? So it will drop your
Okay.
score if you're just like, "Yo, here's who we are and here's why we're great." So that's a really
Okay.
really helpful one for someone that is newer to the personalization game or relevance game.
Yeah.
I'm very similar to you, Alex. Like I get very excited when I see a business problem. I'm like, "Oh, this is really interesting. Like I want to talk about it," and I can go into sermon mode. And so for me, it is so helpful to see that like C or B score that's like you're getting dinged because this thing's way too long. And it forces me to again consider if I were to walk up to someone at a party and read 300 words to them, they would slowly start backing away and I wouldn't blame them. Right? So it's like, what
Like
is it?
the Homer GIF in the bushes or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Lavender's helping me say like, boil it down. Boil it down to the thing that's going to spark curiosity so that you have permission to say all of this stuff in a two-way phone conversation. And that was the reason back in December 2021 when I came across Lavender when I was still at Challenger, I was like, this is it. Because without someone sort of standing over your shoulder saying, Jen, that email is too long, and someone that you trust and believe is legit, it's just so easy to fall back into those patterns. So I mean, I wrote an email this morning and it was like, way too long, way too complex sentence structure, way too high level, like 11th grade reading level. So it's not like this thing where you install it and then check the box, you're fine. It is
Yeah.
that constant coach, which I frankly need so that I'm not wasting a ton of time writing these long emails that just don't
Yeah.
get read because they're too long.
Yeah. Do you find like as you've been using it, like your just habits change or you're just like just your skills or you learn through like it's not just like I'm clicking like a button and like AI is
No.
like rewriting my email. It's like I'm thinking about how I structure things differently.
Yes, and I
Yeah.
absolutely love the way you say that. And that was the reason I came here because again, it goes back to the title of this. Like, I always believe there will be a place for humans in sales. I have tried ChatGPT, and our product is built on ChatGPT, so it's no knock against it. But if I just ask ChatGPT to write a sales email, the first line it spits out is, I hope you're well, right? And so it's like, I don't want someone to do the job for me. I want AI to help make me smarter, but I'm still in the driver's seat. And that's where I think, like,
Totally.
the efficiency, everybody wants to make efficiency the word of the year, but there's a cost to efficiency when efficiency is eliminating the human. And when everybody starts to sound like each other, who's going to be the one that wins? It's the differentiator that's human led. And
Yeah.
that's where I liked what Lavender was doing, because I'm like, they're not replacing the seller, they're teaching the seller a skill by giving them that access, but not saying, okay, just put your contact list in here and just we'll send all the emails for you.
Yeah. So well said. Well, then, I want to kind of round this off with like, just what I've noticed. Let me like just tell you what I notice about you on LinkedIn, and then you tell me what I'm missing, and maybe if you have a strategy that I'm missing. But like what I see from you is like, you know, you have this way of like contextualizing problems that sellers face in a way that like people can understand, but then you also kind of like bring in your personal story. You like just you make it really easy for people to like kind of just do tactical things. I see like you do lists really well, and you're just like, here's kind of like the problem I see, or here's where I don't know if I'm saying this right, but like you reframe a lot of like misconceptions, through like your head, like the title of any post is like, people think this, here's what they're getting wrong, or like here's another way to look at this, or here's the reframe, and then you kind of outline some certain things, and you kind of mix in just yeah, like I said, you like your personal story, like you just got married, so congratulations, and yeah, that's what I see. And then I'm like, this is easy for me to consume and just get on with my day. Like I can make a quick comment, like to your thing, like I think I made something today where like, oh yeah, GAS, give a shit, I'd buy that shirt, like instead of don't get gas lit by your prospects, sell with gas by Jen Allen Knuth. I'll buy that shirt or something. But that's what I'm saying. So is that like kind of what you're doing, and is there other things that I might be missing, or what you're trying to communicate? And what advice would you give for people kind of starting out trying to share their ideas on LinkedIn?
First of all, that would be word for word what I would hope someone would say. And that right there, like what you just did, is made me feel heard and seen, right? And that's our opportunity as sellers, is we don't have to compliment and like gas people up all the time, but just showing someone, I see you. Like that feeling that you just gave me is exactly the feeling that we should deliver for our prospects. And because it feels good and people remember it. I would say that is exactly it. The reason I do it this way is because I hate how unsafe the sales profession can feel at times. I hate that people are scared to admit something is hard. I hate that people fear that a weakness is like, or something they're struggling with is going to be labeled as a weakness. Like I got an email from someone this morning that like broke my heart, where she was like, I'm a failure at sales and I don't know how to do anything. And I'm just like, gosh, no one should feel that way. Everybody should know that this shit is hard. And I think by living and breathing and saying, look, I've been doing this for 18 years and I still get this stuff wrong, it makes it safer for other people to like kind of raise their hand and say, okay, it's hard for me too. And it felt like it should be easy and I wasn't getting it and I'm beating myself up. So my intention is to make it safer for people to say, something is hard. I've followed the rules. I followed the instructions. I'm still getting it wrong. And oftentimes it's like your rule book is broken. And that's what I want. That's what I want to break.
Yeah. That's so well put, because like, yeah, people think they have to like do things by a rule book, or if they're not succeeding, they're like something's happening. But you kind of like put that on its head and say like, yeah, it's not like you're not like doing the wrong things. It's just like what you were told to do is maybe misaligned or misguided or something like that. And like, here's another, and you don't say this is the way, you say this is another way, or again, that reframe or a different, and like, I'm sure how you sold and how you currently sell is, again, like, I'm not the arbiter of all that's right in the world. I'm just, here's another idea, like you said earlier, a point of view because of XYZ, and then you start a conversation. I'm sure you learn things through your posts, through comments, and you start conversations there, and that's really great. Yeah. And oh, by the way, amazing cost. I did not see this video, but you were on with one of our other guests, Chris Bogue, and you had one of the best costumes on LinkedIn I've ever seen, talking about dark social. And I'll just say that. Maybe I'll put a link to that in the notes. I don't know. All right. Well, as we kind of close off here, I ask people, Jen, just like a fun, because I think like one of our best superpowers in sales, Jen, is just like ourselves and our stories, and like things just make us uniquely us, and weaving that into all the stuff we've been talking about of like giving a shit and insights and all that stuff. So this is a fun question about you. So if I asked the people closest to you, your new husband, what is just something that is so totally Jen, that is maybe something that would only happen to her, could only happen to her, or that is just so totally her? Like, what's something that they would tell me, or he would tell me?
Okay, I can give you an answer. I love this question. Again, not a question anyone's ever asked me.
Thank you.
People think that I have my shit together in general, and with work, I generally do.
Yeah.
With my personal life, I am the person that lets their driver's license expire, lets their passport expire.
No.
I just am, like, right now, I am in San Francisco, and I always have to think before I travel, do they have clear at that airport? Because my license is expired. I have to carry my passport. Like, I am a hot mess when it comes to anything that involves me having to go somewhere and do something. So that would be my answer, is I'm an absolute train wreck when it comes to that. So if someone wants to build a solution that just like does all that stuff for you, I will be your first customer.
Oh my gosh. We're kindred spirits. Yeah. I need my wife, if she wasn't around, like nothing would, like, my credit cards wouldn't work. My IDs wouldn't get done. Like, like the renewals of stuff wouldn't happen. I don't know any of it. Like, I just assume that they're like happening. I don't open my mail in my mailbox. I don't bills.
When's the last time you went to the post office? It has been
never. Yeah.
Probably a decade for me. I will eat so many return packages that require me to go to the post office because I'm like, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to go there. It's so stupid and irresponsible.
Oh my God, I got a speeding ticket. You're making me like just trauma because like I was in Ireland and like I'm driving at the speed of traffic, and then like they have like cameras over there, and like I was there for like New Year's or whatever. I get back 2 weeks later, I get like this weird like envelope from this police department in Ireland written in Irish and or Gaelic or whatever, and then the other like side is like, you owe us $200, and like my wife's like, or we're gonna like all these points on your license. I'm like, it's just nothing, and they're like, no, like you gotta pay this, and it was on my desk staring at me. She would move it, she'd put it on my computer. And I finally like had to like have an hour conversation, and paying a ticket in Ireland is not an easy task. So you're just like, it wasn't clear. Do I pay this exchange rate? Like, it was a mess. So we're kindred spirits.
We are. I feel that.
All right. Well, Jen, you have been a ball. Yeah, I'm so glad that like we got this to happen. For those of you listening, Jen challenged me because for 5 minutes, at least a good 10 minutes before this started, we couldn't get our audio to work. And she's like, well, like, and she deduced it. If it wasn't like her end or the speakers, maybe it's your headphones. And I'm like, you know what? And I pulled it out, and my headphones are beat up Apple speakers that some of you may see us, see me use. And, just it goes to show you're good at what you do in real life, not just on LinkedIn. So thank you, Jen, for coming on. Where can people connect with you, find out more about what you do, and connect with you in a real human way?
Yeah, obviously LinkedIn is my jam. I did one TikTok. I'm a one and done TikToker. I'm done.
Peace. Now I want to see this now. But hopefully you can bring it
Oh,
to LinkedIn sometimes. We can
it
all see
was
you
it
dancing,
was
hopefully, or I don't know.
it was a vibe. It was the whole vibe. It was right before I started at Lavender, actually, like previewing that I was going there.
Nice.
So LinkedIn, Jen Allen Knuth, and then check out Lavender at lavender.ai. You can actually try it for 7 days, see if you're like me and Alex, and it helps you write emails that get you better replies.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Jen.
Thank you. And thank you, by the way, for having a podcast on this topic. It is sorely, sorely needed, and I truly enjoyed being here with you today.
I appreciate it. Yeah. We'll have more conversations. Hopefully, won't be the last one. Thank you so much for saying that.